Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Season 4, Episode 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. titled Lockup. Before I go any further, I just want to say there will be spoilers in this review. As the title suggests, this episode revolves heavily around a prison, specifically the prison that Ghost Rider's uncle is in. Coulson, Mac, Fitz, Daisy, and the Ghost Rider need to go into it and rescue Ghost Rider's uncle, because Lucy Bauer, who is that spirit-type entity, is going after him. She's going after him because of his knowledge about the book Darkhold, which, as I mentioned in previous episodes, I think is going to play a part directly with the upcoming film Doctor Strange. And as we saw in this episode, this book seems to have a lot of magical abilities within it. Specifically, when you saw the pages open and were touched by people, certain things appeared in them, which I was kind of confused about how that actually works. Can anyone touch the book and these things appear, or is it just certain people? Also, what does this book do to people? Because as we've seen, this book is very important. So while that's going on, and that does take up the main plot of this episode, there is another side plot with Simmons when it comes to her having to deal with the lie detector test that she has to take regularly. And in this case, she has some things to hide, so that's a bit of a problem. Also, she has to deal directly with the new director, Jeffrey Mace, when it comes to him dealing with this whole Inhumans thing in the public eye. He essentially has to go on one of those cable news type programs and have this conversation or debate with the senator that we have seen in previous episodes, who is very much anti-Inhuman. And they have a very interesting debate back and forth about what S.H.I.E.L.D's role is when it comes to the Inhumans and just how they're going to handle the situation. But what is most interesting about that specific scene is that it has a lot of real-world application when it comes to certain debates about certain races and cultures and things like that, where there's all kinds of these debates you see on cable news programs all the time. A lot of the same type of terminology was used in the episode, which was very interesting. So it's nice to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is really trying to connect real world with their fictional world. And one of the bigger things in the episode comes during that specific segment where Jeffrey Mace reveals himself to be an Inhuman. I thought this was going to happen this season at some point, but I thought it was going to happen several episodes down the line. I didn't think we would get to the 5th episode having them just announce that S.H.I.E.L.D. is back in action, and now the world knows that the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. is an Inhuman himself. That's a very new, interesting aspect to the whole situation, because people are already very skeptical and weary and worried about Inhumans, and now all of a sudden you have an Inhuman running S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Also, in the end of the episode, you got a very interesting meeting between Jeffrey Mace and that senator woman, Senator Nadir, who he was just having a very open and public debate about, and now they're kind of talking to each other as if they know one another, which is very suspicious to me. It's very suspicious that all of a sudden these two would have this secret meeting, specifically since Jeffrey Mace is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. that happens to have a lot of transparency now, which was something that the old S.H.I.E.L.D. really lacked, which is why Hydra was kind of able to manifest itself within it. Also, you see at the end of this episode where he has to strike up some kind of deal with this woman, because once again, Coulson is going off book, he's going rogue, he's doing his own thing. Whether the new director knows about this and just letting it happen because he knows that he can't control Coulson, or this is something he has to deal with in a different way. And that way seems to be making some type of backdoor deal with this woman who, as we've seen in previous episodes, is a part of the Watchdogs who are trying to start this entire anti-Inhuman campaign. So all of these things are all interlocking. And before I get back to Coulson and his team, there was a very interesting moment between Simmons and the new director where Simmons essentially blackmails him into not having to take these lie detector tests anymore, because the whole backstory that we're getting with the new director is that he is a war hero of some sort, a former soldier who did some heroic thing in Vienna. And in Captain America Civil War, there was an event in Vienna, so that has direct correlation with that film. Things are not all what they seem to be, because apparently the public narration is not exactly probably what happened. So the director has to keep what happened there secret, and in doing so, he has to once again create another lie, which throws out the whole transparency thing when it comes to S.H.I.E.L.D. Back to what happened at this prison. We get kind of a prison break type situation where Coulson and his team have to devise a plan to break out Robbie Reyes' uncle, who was directly involved with this scientific team around the Darkhold book. And in doing so, a lot of complications happen. During this prison break, a lot of inmates end up getting free, creating all kinds of chaos, and we get a kind of cool action scene with Daisy, who locks herself in this cafeteria to try to save Coulson and May. But it was a very cool type of action sequence where we got to see Daisy utilize more of her martial arts training and not rely on her inhuman powers. And it's becoming very precarious, the situations where she can and cannot use her powers, because her powers are affecting her physically in the sense that they are breaking and re-breaking her arms. But throughout this episode, and specifically during this prison break sequence, we got to see Robbie Reyes fight within himself about how to control the Ghost Rider within him. There is a moment in the episode where he confronts somebody who was part of the gang that ordered the drive-by that injured his brother and I believe killed someone else. What we learn is that all of the people within that gang have been wiped out by him except for this one guy. So his revenge is not complete until he gets this one guy. And while the prison break riot is going on, he does in fact get his revenge. And it's a very dark and very sinister sequence where he questions this guy, he finds out some vital information that it's still up in the air who ordered this hit on these kids. If you're gonna order a hit on someone, there has to be a reason for it. You don't just do these things randomly. So that is something that we need to find out later on. And I think we're going to get a little bit more of that in a subsequent episode where we're supposed to be getting the backstory of Ghost Rider, which I really can't wait to see. In the moment where he fully transforms into the Ghost Rider is another highlight of the episode for me, because every time I see him morph into that form, yes, I know it looks very CGI, it's very obvious CGI, but there's something about it that exudes badassery to me. I don't know why, and you can definitely tell this adds a presence to the show, because as soon as he morphs, burns that guy to death, and then walks out of that prison cell, all of the prisoners in there know that this is a guy you do not mess with. They all quickly ran away back into their cells, closed their doors. Another thing we found out in this episode is that S.H.I.E.L.D. has finally been able to develop a remedy or a cure for whatever that the ghost creatures do when they touch you. Like we saw with May early on, you no longer have to kill someone and bring them back to life in order to fix the problem. They've developed a remedy for it, and we see it directly when Mac is affected by one of these ghost creatures, that you have to stick this kind of antidote directly into the brain, which looks kind of painful to me, if I'm going to be honest. Overall, I have to say, I thought this was a great episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I think this season is so far pretty solid in this first 5 episodes. We're getting some really good stuff in these episodes. I don't know whether it's the shift from the 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock time slot to 10 o'clock, or it's the inclusion of the Ghost Rider, but the show seems to be much smoother now. There seems to be a lot more cohesion within it that I'm noticing. So I'm really liking the show this season. With that being said, this has been my review of Season 4, Episode 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. titled Lockup. If you like this video, please check out my other episode reviews for the other superhero-related television series.